Welcome to Abstracts University's Top 10 Under 10. Our videos use the extensive experience in sales and sales management of our executive management team and input from our most successful clients. We know the clients who implement our proven best practices close more business. This is the first of a 4-part mini-series on preparing for your meeting. Before I get started, let me share with you a great story that our client shared with us that'll reinforce the need to prepare for your meeting. Our client, let's call him Jeff, listened to and scored the appointment in the portal and did a little research on the company where the prospect worked. He put the meeting in his calendar and thought he was ready to go. He arrived early, met the KDM, and told us within the first 10 minutes he knew this company would make a great partner. The problem was he couldn't get the key decision maker to open up. He knew they weren't connecting in a way that would help him create a partnership. He told us he went home that night very frustrated, started to do some research on the person he'd met, and the results of the research did nothing but increase his frustration. You see, our client was a huge science fiction buff. And after just 5 minutes of researching, he learned the individual that he couldn't connect with. The key decision maker at the company he really wanted to close was in fact as big of a science fiction aficionado as he was. The KDM actually had an active blog about science fiction. Now the good news is he used that content to reconnect with the KDM and actually close the deal. So let's jump into our top 10. And know, if you walk into a meeting knowing these 10 things, it will enhance the quality of your meeting and the opportunity to gain another client. And what you're looking for is content that you can use to build a bridge to connect you and the prospect. You're also looking for someone who can provide an introduction. B2B decision makers are 5 times more likely to engage if an introduction is part of the sales process. First is the person's current job title. You need to know their title, but don't prejudge your meeting based on it. You may be meeting with the influencer in the company who could be your internal champion. Most companies' decision process rarely starts with a person that's going to sign the contract. And in today's environment, most decisions involve more than one person in the company. Next is previous employers. It'll give you a feel for what this person's done in the past. You also may know someone who works there, or they might even be a client. Find out what college they attended. You may have graduated from the same university or know someone who does that could provide you with an introduction. And if the university has a top-rated sports team, content about that can be used as a great bridge. Look at their pictures and read what they post to understand their hobbies. People are often very passionate about their hobbies, and most love to talk about them. As you're reading and looking at pictures, try to identify what their interests are. Things like animal rescue or specific charities can be great content to build a bridge between you and your prospect. Talking about sports can build a great bridge for you. Most likely, again, you'll need to look at their pictures and read their comments to understand what their favorite sport is and to identify if they're dedicated to a specific team. If it's obvious that your prospect is a sports fan, make sure you read at least a couple of articles on their favorite team. Take a look at the company website for personal information, but it's really going to be based on the position that the person holds within the company and the design of their website. Google blog search engines. There are a lot of great tools that'll help you search for bloggers. You're not going to find many people here, but if your prospect is a blogger, you have definitely found the topic they're interested in. So read at least their last 2 publications, subscribe to their blog, and it's great content to print out, put it in your briefcase. Bloggers are very proud of what they publish. If you've identified a club or a group the prospect is interested in, it's unlikely you'll find content on that website about your prospect. However, you will enhance your understanding of what the prospect is interested in. When you're looking into their family, just make notes about commonalities in lifestyle, where they live, their family structure, if they're married or single. And then when you're looking at their pictures, which is the best place to get information about their children, again, look for commonalities in the number of kids they have, the ages, if they're boys or girls, and specifically pay attention to children's sports. People love to talk about their children, what they're doing in school and their sports. Our recommendation is to use your stories about your experience with children to get the prospect to open up about their experiences with their kids. Before I move into the resources you can use to complete your research, I want to tell you about the two most common mistakes people make when they're researching. The first is assuming that people use only the social media resources that you do. And the second is forgetting the second research goal, which is finding an introduction. Look at faces. You're trying to identify someone that can possibly give you an introduction to the prospect. So regarding the resources you can use to complete your research, naturally Google's on the top of the list. Try searching the individual's name and then look for affiliations, clubs, universities. Look for anything that you can do further research on. You want to also go to Twitter. It's one of the most underused social media resources at our fingertips. There are over 300 million Twitter users, and you can be included in the most relevant conversations in your industry, in your market, as they happen. You can use Twitter to identify opportunities before your competition does and to increase engagement with your clients. If your prospect is a Facebook fan, it can provide you great insight into who you're meeting. Look at their family structure, their kids, the sports they're into, the college they attended. Look at pictures for familiar places that you can talk about, and then use the More tab in Facebook to understand where they've checked in, the events they've attended, and what books and movies they like. You can look at the company website for personal information, but it's really going to be based on the title of the person you're meeting with and the design of their website. Do a Google search for blog search engines. There are several tools out there that'll help you. You won't find a lot of people, but if your prospect is a blogger, you've absolutely found the content that they're interested in. Subscribe to their blog and be very familiar with at least the last 2 publications. When you search the clubs or groups the person's a member of, it's unlikely you're going to find information about them, but it will give you great insight into what their interests are. The same applies to college websites. It's unlikely you're going to find content on the individual you're meeting with, but you could know someone that graduated from the same university that could provide you with an introduction. And if the university has a top-ranked sports team, make sure you get very familiar with the last few articles about the team. And the last is LinkedIn. If you're not a fan of using LinkedIn to grow your business, you are not using it correctly. It can be a who's who in your industry, specifically in your market. So look at first, second, and third connections, review their work history, and look at the faces of the people that endorsed your prospect. You may not recognize a name, but you could recognize the face that could be your introduction. Before I get into the details of your introduction, first of all, you need to develop a standard introduction that can be used in every first meeting. Everything gets easier if you don't have to think about what you're going to say as you're saying it. I'll give you an example and then break it down for you. So it's great meeting you. To get the most out of our meeting, I took the time to do a little research on ABC Textiles. And I read on Facebook that we have at least one thing in common. I coach my son's soccer team and I saw you coach basketball. How long have you been coaching? So to break it down, I specifically mentioned that I researched the company first, then talked about what I learned about the individual, but I didn't tie the word research into the individual. Always mention the resource where you get the information. The person posted it, they're going to instantly visualize the post they're referring to and the resource. And I ended it with an open-ended question specifically about the bridge content. This introduction will put the prospect at ease, and it starts a pattern of you asking questions and the prospect providing answers. Introductions aren't the only place you can use a bridge, so don't give up if the content you used in your introduction didn't make that connection between you and the prospect. It's impossible for me to tell you exactly when to use a bridge during the meeting, but if you move from a receptionist area into the prospect office, look at the pictures on their wall and on their desk to try to find content that you can use to connect you to the prospect. Another good opportunity is if the meeting moves from one office to another. That's great space to insert a personal conversation. Well, that's all for today. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video on preparing for your meeting and the personal research you need to do. The next video in the series covers the research you need to do on the company and the industry that your prospect works in. As always, we appreciate your partnership and look forward to continuing to help you grow. If you have any questions, please reach out to your partner sales manager.